Welcome to Women at the Wheel. I'm your host, Maddie Weiner, editor of Aftermarket News, and today I'm joined by Kim Nolan, Senior Vice President of Sales for Traditional Market and Napa Auto Parts for BBB Industries.
Thank you, Maddie.
Kim, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to have you in studio. And, to start off, I wanted to sort of start from the beginning of your career. I was doing some research and saw that you grew up in the aftermarket pretty much.
I was born into the aftermarket, I always say.
Yeah.
Yeah. My father founded Genco Auto Electric in 1966. It was actually in the basement of our home. So,
oh my gosh.
Yes. So I've been in auto parts for as long as I can remember.
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool. So yeah, what was it like growing up with an entrepreneurial dad, in the automotive aftermarket? You said working out of the basement of the house. Yeah. I'm sure you have some interesting stories around that.
Well, I'm not afraid of grease, I can tell you that.
I like it.
I think you learn a lot growing up in a family that owns a business. I really appreciate the work ethic. There's no money tree in the backyard. The buck stops with you.
Right.
Whether you're sweeping the floors or you're into profit sharing, and everything in between is your responsibility. So I'm one of 3 girls. So, I'm sure my dad would have wished, for a son to take over the business. I'm the only one that ended up in the business, but we all have a terrific work ethic. I like to say that I'm thrilled of my exposure to like the blue collar type of work, that get out behind the desk and see what it takes to get the job done. So I learned a lot of valuable lessons growing up. Very cool. Thank you.
That's awesome. And, I know your father passed away fairly recently. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
But can you maybe tell us what you learned from him, something that you still use today?
Sure. Just to touch briefly on his passing. Mr. Bigler, the founder of BBB Industries, passed away on the Friday in June, and my dad passed away on Monday.
Oh,
and
wow.
I had worked for my dad for 17 years and Mr. Bigler for 17 years. So for me, it was like the end of an era. 2 men that just taught me so much.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So if I think about the, irreplaceable experiences with my dad, it's the ability to touch so many jobs. Like, I have a degree in human resource management, but I was the finance person. That's how I got into sales. I worked in purchasing. I actually worked on the line. So,
wow.
So how many, opportunities in life does someone have like that? So I really value that experience.
That's cool. So he gave you all of those, different experiences, you're saying. Is that right? Yeah.
Right. Like, you didn't walk in with my dad and become the vice president. Like,
Right.
I have assembled alternators. I worked in purchasing, which I thought would be great because I was spending money, but you're only as good as the part you don't have. So
Good
I got
point.
to learn all those tough lessons. I learned to be humble. I learned to make mistakes, but how to recover from them, how to own up from them, not be defensive. So a lot of good life lessons.
Yeah, it's great to see, there's a lot of men in the aftermarket, boosting women and really being an advocate for women reaching different positions in these companies. It's great to see.
Yeah, it's very true. I think one of the things too, starting so young in, being exposed to the industry, I never really had the fear of it was an all male industry. It's all I knew.
Right.
When I came home from school and it was in the basement of my home, that's what I saw. So I appreciate that experience and really have seen so many changes in just the last 5 years. And like you said, men being advocates for women and appreciating the diversity of thought that we bring to the table. So I've really enjoyed watching that grow over my career.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Kim, you are now Senior Vice President of Sales for Traditional Market and Napa Auto Parts. But can you describe, sort of your career trajectory of how you got from where you started to where you are today?
Sure. When we sold to BBB in October of 2006, we signed a 3-year contract to come on to BBB. And my accountant warned me at the time. He said, Kim, most people that sell a business don't last a year. It's very hard to go from owning a business to working for somebody.
For sure, yeah.
But we decided on the day that we sold, we were going to be good BBB employees. We know how hard it is to be the owner. So we just went in with a really positive attitude. And I said, okay, I have 3 years and my main focus is to keep my customers. And that's what I was going to do. And BBB had the same core values. Customer satisfaction was of the utmost importance, and that's what I love. So I spent the first 3 years really just doing that, maintaining the Genco accounts. Mm-hmm. In 2010, BBB acquired a company, Vision OE, and we bought on power steering.
Okay.
And I was petrified because, like I said, I had been on the line. I had bought the parts for starters and alternators, so I was very comfortable talking about them.
Right.
Now I'm like, power steering, a rack? Like, is that the thing in the big box? How am I ever going to learn this? I'm never going to get the chance to touch the parts like I did in the past.
For sure.
And that was really kind of a pivotal moment for me at BBB. Because I realized my strength was relationship selling. My customers relied on me. They counted on me. Yeah. So they gave me the opportunity when I bought a new product to the table. And we had great success in launching that category. And that's how I started to grow at BBB.
Very cool.
Yeah, my territory began to expand. And obviously my portfolio expanded with the new products. And it's just grown over time.
Wow.
Not everything happens, as fast as you would like it to.
Right.
But when the opportunity presented itself to be promoted to senior vice president and take over the country for the traditional market, mm-hmm. I was thrilled to be given the opportunity. So I just think concentrating on, doing the right thing, speaking up when I had the opportunity, letting them know I was always ready for a challenge.
Yeah.
17 years, but see, it doesn't seem like I did a lot in those 17 years to get there.
No, but that's great. And it's always good to, reflect on that too. So
yeah. It's to be patient. That's something I think a lot about when I hire somebody is, is this the right fit for you corporately? Because mm-hmm. not every company has a huge corporate ladder where there's going to be all these, title changes. But if you love what you're doing and you can grow with a company that's growing, it could be the right fit.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. That's awesome. I'm curious, to talk about maybe some of the hurdles you face. You're in a leadership position, and as a woman in our industry that's, traditionally male dominated. So can you maybe go through some of the hurdles or some of the challenges that you have faced and how you've sort of confronted them or even risen to the occasion?
Yeah. Like I said, I really think it's been in the last 5 years that there's been a lot of change.
Yeah.
For me, I personally feel it's harder as a woman in the industry to earn the respect. Mm-hmm. You're not given it, where I feel like sometimes a male will come into a position and they're automatically given the respect of the role. Mm-hmm. I've got to prove that I'm the right person for the job, and then the respect comes after the fact. One of the things that I think is different for women too is the ability to say, yes, I'm a mom, but I can also do this job. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think, well, what priority is she going to put first? I don't know that I necessarily have to put anything first. I just have to figure out what's important in that moment.
Right.
A lot of people, I always say you got to let go of the guilt. I'm never going to be perfect at everything. I'm going to do what it takes to get the job done. I'm going to make mistakes, and I'm going to pick myself up and figure out how to do it better the next time. Mm-hmm. You have to have good support at home. I think one of the things that's important for women is to speak up. Don't be afraid to say what's on your mind.
Yeah.
Mr. Bigler said to me when we came on board as from Genco, he said, Kim, we want to hear what you have to say. I want you to speak up. You're not always going to be right, but I always want to hear it. And I just always remember that. Mm-hmm. It is important, and I'm not always going to be right. One of the things that was difficult for me to learn is now I'm part of a bigger corporation, and not my problem, which seems big to me, might not be the biggest problem of the day.
Yeah.
So learning how to manage expectations of what they're going to be able to do to what I think needs to be done to solve my problem, so.
I gotcha.
That might not be the hurdle of a woman, but that's just a hurdle of a transition for me.
No, but yeah, and sort of the balance between home life and work life. Yep. Traditionally women have been, very, obviously dedicated to home life. Yep. But, I know we were talking before the podcast, and now you need, 2 salaries to support a family,
right.
in the U.S. at least nowadays. And, it's very important for, both parties to work. And, that balance is always, I think, something that women are struggling with.
One of the things I tell people is, like a lot of times I have to recheck myself. Like all of a sudden I'll be motivated or driven by something at work, and I'll put my family life second, and all of a sudden start to feel that, that's out of balance all of a sudden. So just take a step back and reevaluate. I would say, recheck what I'm doing. Don't be afraid to take that step back. And the timing for everybody in life is different. I talk about getting involved. I waited till much later in my career to be involved in things outside of work in the industry, because I did have my family that was also a priority. Well, now that I have my daughter's an adult, I can give back to the community that gave me so much. So the timing was right for me. Just because it's right for me now doesn't mean it's right for somebody else.
That's so true. Yeah, that's really good advice. And I did want to back up a little bit. You're talking about Genco, and obviously the company was sold to BBB in 2006. That had to be a tough decision.
Huge.
As your father created it, I'm sure. But can you sort of, and you touched on this, but I'm wondering if you can maybe dig a little deeper and help us understand sort of what went into that decision and what you feel are really the greatest rewards of joining forces with BBB.
Absolutely. It was our 40th year in business.
Wow.
Yeah, there used to be a lot more remanufacturers in our industry. There were 3 actually on Long Island. And BBB approached us about selling, and my dad wasn't really excited about it. The company was doing well, and I said, Dad, if we don't sell now, BBB is going to buy somebody else, and then there's going to be nothing left to sell. So be so proud of this business that you created in the basement of your home. We were doing $20 million a year in sales. We had about 100 employees.
You've moved out of the basement.
We moved out of the basement, yeah. Or we had a very big basement.
Yeah, there you go.
I think the timing is right. I also knew we didn't have what it took to get to the next level. We weren't engineers. My dad was an entrepreneur. We were, scrappy. The timing was right. So yeah, it was a big decision. And we knew that BBB was going to shut down manufacturing the day we sold. So that was having to let go 80, employees. You think back a lot about the challenges it does take as the business owner, and somebody quits and they give you no notice, or we went through a lot of, tough times, sales audits, INS audits, IRS audits.
Yeah, right.
Your family's all responsible for that. So when it comes time to selling, it sounds very selfish, but I'm making a decision about what's best for my family at this time.
Right.
So it was difficult, but it felt very much like the right thing to do. And there's been a lot of rewards about, joining BBB.
Very cool.
Yeah. One of the things I think about is I couldn't wait. They were going to be so much smarter, and they were going to have all these departments, and everything was going to be better. I think it was interesting to learn that big business really has a lot of the same problems, and probably the same percentage of problems, just at much bigger dollars.
Yeah.
So part of it made me think, well, I was a little bit smarter than I thought I was. Because
I love it.
Right. They don't always have everything figured out. But to be a part of BBB's tremendous growth, category growth, international growth, the diversity at which the company is run has really been exciting to be a part of.
Very cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And just sort of a follow-up to that, in your role today, can you maybe describe what you do on a daily basis? Senior Vice President, Sales for a Traditional Market and Napa
Let me flip
Auto
my
Parts.
notes.
Yeah, no, I get it. That's a big title. It encompasses a lot.
Yeah.
So, maybe not on a daily basis, but can you describe sort of what you're in charge of?
Sure, absolutely. I think the number one thing I like to say is I'm the voice of the customer to BBB. Obviously, my job at BBB is, customer relationships, being a part of the strategic plan to meet the revenue goals.
Yeah.
How is my team going to do that? How are we going to achieve those sales goals? And probably my favorite part of the job is managing my team, keeping them motivated and making them feel connected to the company. They're all remote, so it's my job to make sure, they have to feel a part of BBB and that they're empowered to make the decisions, keep the customer satisfied, and generate the revenue.
No, that's incredible. That's awesome. Now, Kim, you were named a 2022 Women of the Year by Women in Auto Care. So
thank
congratulations.
You. Thank you.
That's awesome.
I hope you can see I'm blushing.
Well, I mean, it's easy to see why.
So I don't know about that.
But, you've been in this business since I read 1989.
Correct.
Okay. And a lot's changed. Obviously, we've talked about that. So what advice would you give to women in the automotive aftermarket today that, are really looking to advance their careers like you have and make a mark?
Be authentic is my number one advice to anybody, no matter, what career you're in, what position, what industry. I like to think, it's my reputation that has gotten me to where I am, and it's my reputation of, I'm going to be a problem solver. I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. Don't be afraid to say you don't know the answer, but always get the answer, and get back to that person. I think, the devil is in the details. I really pride myself on the details, making sure that I'm speaking up. There's a quote from Steve Martin, and it says, be so great they can't ignore you.
Ooh.
Yeah, I love that one. Just, do your job, do it right, and when the time comes, you're there for that opportunity.
Yeah, I love that.
That would be my advice. What was really pivotal for me, and I know that we're sitting here talking about, woman at the wheel, but I kind of feel like I lived in a bubble. I felt like I go to meetings and I'm one of few women that are at industry events.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I'm in this magazine, Woman at the Wheel, and I'm reading all these other incredible stories of women in the industry that I didn't even know.
Yeah.
And I thought, I can't remember how many years ago that was, 3 or 4. And I thought, how could I have been doing this for 30 years and not know about all these other, inspiring women in the automotive aftermarket? And my CEO came to me at that time, after the article, and he said, Kim, I really need your help. I need you to share your story and encourage that there are these opportunities out there for women, and help me make a difference at BBB. So that was a changing moment for me. And who would have thought? Like, when I got the honor, I was like, this is great, but I didn't realize how much it would change my energy into advocating for women in the industry.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great to hear.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Very cool. Well, Kim, congrats on everything you've achieved. I know you're a big, advocate for women in auto care, and I think that's great. And I so appreciate you sharing your story with us on the podcast today. We really appreciate it.
Well, I would remind everybody that, it is free to be a member of the Women in Auto Care. So just go to autocare.org and check it out. And there's a lot of tremendous resources that they provide. And I actually made sure that I bought you a pin today for the Women in Auto Care.
I love
so
it.
You can represent us with pride.
That's awesome. I will.
And, another favorite quote of mine comes from a Peloton coach, Jess Sims. And she says, you can be a work in process and a masterpiece at the same damn time.
Oh, love it.
And I try to think about that every day. So.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Thanks.